Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcada Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it.
Hello everyone, I'm Patricia DiOrio, and this is Get Conscious Now. Welcome to the inspirational, informational, out-of-the-box talk show about what it means to live a conscious life in today's chaotic world. Today's show is about conscious youth and about young people today that are in the conversation that this show is predicated upon, and that is that we are one, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience with innate immeasurable power to create our reality, which we're doing all the time anyway. But this conversation is about doing it consciously. So we have two wonderful guests today, two young men that epitomize this conversation, and their influence in this community is already happening. But before you meet them, I of course want to introduce my very charming co-host, Stu Zimmerman, who always has a very bright smile and witty and wise words of welcome for you. Stu, you want to welcome our audience?
If you insist.
Okay.
Thank you, Patricia. Hi, everybody, and welcome back. And if it's your first time, welcome, welcome, welcome to Get Conscious Now. And as Patricia said, it is about consciousness. It's about a state of being and being present. And can we be present to something that is really loving and full of gratitude and just feels delightful through all of our cells? And if you've missed any of our programs, I'm inviting you to come to our channel at YouTube, youtube.com, Get Conscious Now. We have a whole library of 16 shows and counting. This will be number 17. And our last episode in particular was fabulous with Reverend Michael Beckwith, who had incredible words of wisdom. So we have a great show lined up today. We welcome you here and stay tuned for an absolutely fabulous, informative, and entertaining program. Patricia, take it away.
Thank you, Stu. So a few months ago, I had the pleasure of attending a launch of an event, which is a spiritual film festival, first of its kind, right here in Santa Barbara, called the Awakened World International Film Festival. And as I was milling around, I saw a lot of young people there in their 20s and 30s. And I thought that that was interesting because there were quite a few people there, and they all seemed to kind of be around this little hub of two fellows that were there. And I soon discovered that they were the founders, the co-founders of a new organization in town called the Santa Barbara Hustlers for Peace and Prosperity. They are Matt Turner and Dan Colantonio, better known by their spiritual names, which are Sevadeep and Sat Kiret. I hope I got that correct. So Seva and Sat. And they, their organization, the Santa Barbara Hustlers for Peace and Prosperity, is unique in its structure and its mission. They have a special plan to influence positively every life in Santa Barbara by the year 2020. So we're really excited to hear all about their new organization today. So welcome. We're so glad to have you guys here today.
Yeah, welcome.
Us. Really appreciate your being here.
Thanks for having us. Pleasure.
So I'm always very fascinated with my guests, given the conversation of spirituality and consciousness, to know how that came about in your young lives. You know, how, I'm assuming with your given name of Colantonio that you were probably raised in a religious environment, but that's an assumption. So I'd love to know how you were raised, what was your upbringing like that influenced you, and tell us how you came into your consciousness and your awakening. And if you could each share with a couple of minutes each would be great.
Sure. Yeah, we grew up actually on the East Coast. We're from Boston and grew up in the Catholic Church. and never really hit home with me very much.
It never really hit home?
No, I went through the process. That was part of my upbringing, but never really, had too much of a relationship with God or with the Catholic Church and what it meant to even be Catholic. It was kind of just going through the motions a little bit. But I had that upbringing, was confirmed 10th grade, and it wasn't until later on in my life that I started to really become more spiritual, much after, until I left for California, actually. I moved to California when I was 25. So it wasn't until that point when I drove across the country on my own, started to find some spirituality, found Agape, Michael Bernard Beckwith's Spiritual Center, and that's really when I started to have my shift.
That felt like home.
It did. It felt like home, yeah. I needed it too. I'm going through a lot in my life, so when that showed up for me, I started attending every week, and I really just felt love in that community. So that was the beginning for me.
How long ago was that?
That was 2008 or so, 2007 when I moved to California. So it was the next year I really found Agape. So that's a few years ago, 7 years ago now, 8, yeah. A while now. It seems like forever. Different lifetime, really.
Well, you came home to who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, I took that. Yeah.
Great. How about you, Seva?
Yeah, well, similar background, obviously. Grew up in Boston, went through the motions too. I think, our parents, wanted the best for us, so they plugged us into whatever they knew, it was actually the Catholic Church. Neither of them even grew up in this Catholic Church, but I think a lot of parents do that for their kids. They want, them to be plugged into some sort of spiritual community, so they try to find the best fit, and, so we did that for many years, and then once we kind of finished that chapter, I spent many years not really connected to my own presence or God or anything of that nature until finding California, and was going through just a big shift in my own consciousness around who I was and what I was doing in the world, and that's when I actually changed my name to Turner from Colantonio, which was a major factor in my shift. That's when I first realized that, maybe I'm not my name. Maybe I'm not just this physical being. And it sounds simple, but it really was a very profound moment for me. I remember just actually being in the courtroom when the judge said, she asked me why I wanted to change my name. I said I was going through, just a big shift, and I needed just a new chapter in my life, and she agreed, I guess, that was okay by her. So I remember she picked up the gavel and said, okay, you're no longer Matt Colantonio, and she hit the gavel and was like, you're now Matt Turner. And I had this major moment when the gavel hit. It was almost like I was between these two names, because she hadn't declared me Turner yet. And I had this moment where time kind of froze almost, and I didn't even really understand what was going on, but I remember reflecting on it, just being like, wow, maybe I'm not any of these names. What if I just am?
Right.
And it really started me down a path of questioning everything about my identity and who I am in the world, and belief systems I had taken on about myself that I was able to let go of. It was a real.
How did your parents handle the name change?
I think they just didn't really understand it, and they've come a long way, and they're incredibly supportive. But at the time, it was just
I can
especially
imagine
an Italian last name,
Oh.
to let go of that.
Yeah.
I know.
He didn't really understand, so he left me a voicemail. Was really just upset by it. So I've often found myself in the middle, at times. But it was a great experience to go through.
I didn't mention this in my intro, and I meant to do it, is that you're twins, and you're identical twins.
We are.
Which is really.
But not as identical as you'd think, because you had different last names, and there's a lot going on here beneath the surface.
Some differences for sure. Yeah.
Often a topic of conversation.
It is,
Yeah, another topic of conversation.
Definitely. We'll try to get to that. Yeah.
Right.
So did you have a particular epiphany or something that led to your changing your name to Turner or then changing your name to Sevadeep?
Two very different experiences. I'd say the first, I don't know if it was an epiphany, I just moved across the country and was going through just a big shift in what I was doing in the world and what I wanted to do and what my purpose was. And as I was changing, I would find that I wasn't really resonating with my old name. And I would take these trips back to see my family on the East Coast and visit my friends, and within a day or two, I'd find myself getting pulled back into all these old patterns of who I used to be and just the way people were talking to me. And within a few days or a week, I would almost feel like I wasn't who I was trying to be anymore, and I couldn't really understand it. And then I'd go back to California, and within a few days, I'd kind of get back into my life. And I started to really understand the power of the mind and started to study the power of our minds to create our sense of identity. Right. And what I realized was I had all these belief systems tied into my name that I didn't realize I had, who Matt Colantonio was. He was all these things that, my parents and my teachers and my society had told me I was growing up based on beliefs and experiences that I had had, some good, some not good. That's how the mind works. It develops these ideas of what's true and then takes them on into our paradigms. And I realized I had a lot of those that were just kind of holding me back from my growth and my expansion. So changing my name gave me a chance to really free myself from that. I spent about a year before I legally changed my name going by this name in more social and business settings. And I would just journal all the time. I would write, who is Matt Turner? And I would just make a list of all the ways I wanted to be in the world, all the characteristics I wanted to adopt.
Wow.
Because I knew I could shoot. I was designing a character like I was writing a script.
Right.
And I'm a writer, so I resonated with that. It was like I was redesigning this character out of nothing that I knew that I could be.
Which is probably more accurate than you think.
It's very accurate.
It literally is coming out of nothing, as we all are.
And I understand that and resonate with it more now than I did at the time. At the time, I didn't really have the background I had in studying the power of the mind and teaching consciousness, which is what I do now. So I didn't really quite get it then, but it resonated because of the truth of it all.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to go from an English name like Matt Turner or Colantonio to Turner, but then go from Turner or Matt to Sevadeep is another significant leap.
And when did you make that shift?
That happened it was about 2 or 3 years ago. I don't go by Sevadeep full time. I use it all the time, but people know me as Matt Turner. I still use that name all the time too. But I started practicing something called Kundalini Yoga. I was introduced to me through a Sikh that I met in Israel on a trip there, and through some synchronicities, I ended up taking his class in LA for several months. And through it, I found a real connection to my own presence through Kundalini, and applied to get this name through an organization called 3HO Foundation, founded by Yogi Bhajan, who brought this yoga to the West here in California about 40 years ago, and New Mexico. And the name at first I wasn't even going to apply for the name. I had already gone through this big shift, so I didn't really feel the need to, but my girlfriend at the time and my brother had done it, and so they encouraged me, so I did. And when I got this name, I just really loved the meaning of it. Seva means service, to just serve without expectation of receiving, and Deep means complete, so Sevadeep means complete service to God, and it just really resonated with me on a vibrational level. And then a couple of friends just started calling me the name, and I just really liked the sound of it. It felt like it reminded me of my presence in that moment. Every time I hear that name, it reminds me that I'm here now. I'm not this, necessarily this character that's been living, for 32 years and that is eventually going to die. I'm just this presence that's here in this moment.
And how about you, Sat? What was the motivation for you to?
It was at the same. I started doing Kundalini Yoga. It was about 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. It was separately, actually. I wasn't with him at all. I found Kundalini through his girlfriend, actually, who is a really good friend of mine. So she introduced me to yoga at another studio in LA, and I started doing Kundalini. And again, it came at the right time. I was going through a real shift in LA. It was right before I left. I actually left 3 months after that to move to Santa Barbara. I just packed up my car and just moved up here. I gave away everything I owned.
You two didn't move together? No.
Around the same time, yeah. His girlfriend moved up as well. I moved up on my own because I just needed to be here, and we were both just drawn to the same place, really. Yeah. So, but not together, yeah. Separate processes.
Well, this is about as close as paradise as we're going to probably find on the planet, Santa Barbara.
That's why I'm here, honestly.
Yeah.
People ask me, why did you move? What do you move for a job? What do you, no, I just moved here because it's Santa Barbara. I mean, this is where I wanted to be every day and just be present. And I spent most of my time when I first moved here, just many months of really just being present, a lot of time by the water, a lot of meditation and yoga, and it was really just being every day. I wasn't really doing much of anything in particular. It was just doing based on how I wanted to feel.
You were setting the field.
I was, absolutely.
Setting the field.
Yeah, getting to know myself in the town and just being present here. And then we started to just be drawn to different things.
So that leads us to talk about the Santa Barbara Hustlers, which I trust is not at a billiards room or something, right?
Not yet.
That's the first thing I thought. I was like,
idea.
oh my God, they're going to hustle me somehow. But what was the inspiration behind creating the Hustlers in the first place, and how did you choose that name?
Great questions. For me, it goes back to when I was 6 years old, and I went to my first Boston Celtics game in Boston, Massachusetts, and I had this experience I've always reflected on where I don't even remember, I think they were playing the 76ers or something, I don't know. Don't remember the score, don't remember anything about it, other than during this one timeout, stopped the play, players left the court, and 20,000 people were just standing and cheering for about 3 or 4 minutes during the stoppage. And for me, that was just incredible. I mean, what were they even cheering? They were cheering for the team. They were rooting on the team. And I always reflected on this because the fans were the team. And you go to a sports place like Boston, you got all these great sports teams, and around the country, same things. People really take on the identity of the home team. That always stuck with me. And I played sports, coached basketball for 12 years. Wow. Coached a lot in business. So this team environment idea really just stuck with me. Sports has been a part of my life. So when I had my shift and moved here, my brother as well, we had always talked about, what if we just were able to create a team for the town of Santa Barbara? What if there was a team that just existed to serve the town? Anybody could join it. It was free. It was just a way to start teaming up and really recognizing our oneness with each other, really understanding that we're really just the same. If you're walking down the street, you don't step over a teammate to get on the way. If a teammate's out there with a sign that says help, you're going to pick them up. That's what teams do. Right. They help each other. But if you don't look at each other as teammates, you might walk by that person because you're separate. So it really is just a way to bring that idea of oneness into our everyday life of just saying, hey, if you're a teammate with somebody, you're going to help them out. You're going to ask them what they need.
We're all players on the team of life.
That's it.
Beautiful.
We're just playing life every day.
So how the Hustlers, the name of the Hustlers?
That came actually from, I think we were about 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old.
About 12.
We were invited to join a fantasy basketball league with my dad. He invited us with a bunch of his friends, didn't know what that was. He invited us in, and we had to come up with a team name. The team name was Hustlers. Hustlers comes from playing full out. It means when you're on the basketball court, you're in the baseball field, you hustle. It was always a great thing to hustle. I learned that growing up. You always want to give it everything you got. So for us, hustling just meant going out and just playing full out. And that stuck with us. I think this idea of hustlers has stuck with us for our whole lives since that point. So it kind of felt natural, and we've added the peace and prosperity because that's really what we're about, bring the ideas of peace and prosperity to the community around us. And it also confuses less people about billiards rooms and stuff like that. So it helps in that way as well.
So what do you see as some of the major needs in society today that need to be addressed that your organization is including in their mission, so to speak?
Great question. I think just really the basic needs we talk about, just home, family, food. These are things that are just simple things, but often neglected with certain groups of people, especially when we're all out there living individually, living separately. We're looking to, maybe fend for ourselves in our own family, but the people next door, the people on the street, we might not have time for them. We might not get to it because we're too busy. We're working hard, So I think just making sure people's needs are provided in general, and that's what is going to help any community thrive, is that we've got about 80 or 90,000 people in Santa Barbara that live here. They're all individual people that we could get to know. They've got names, they're here, whether maybe they've changed their names, but they're people here that we can get to know on a more familiar basis rather than just the people we're walking by in the street. So it's really just understanding, are people really fulfilled here, for one? Are they really thriving here? We know it's a heaven. We know it's a paradise community. I say it every day. I feel it every day. But there's a lot of people out there that are really struggling in their own way. So I think it's just a way to take that into accountability and say, before we go any further, let's just make sure everyone all their needs are met. Everyone's just, they're not dying on the street, which there are out there, even in our community. Yeah. There's people going to bed hungry. They don't have the right foods. They don't have a sense of connection in family. Those are things, and there's a lot of people out there looking to provide those things. But as a community, if we come together as a team and make sure everybody's needs are provided in those ways, then we can take the next step up, which I think in consciousness, that's where human evolution is going. We're collectively raising our consciousness so we can evolve at a different rate. We can do different things on the planet. So I think before we get to that point, we just got to make sure everyone is just fed. They've got a home. We're well connected. Basic needs, I think. And then we can start to evolve. So that's kind of what we're working on in the next year. And we'll keep evolving as people connect to this team idea.
So specifically, you have a number of player volunteers who are joining you to support various activities, nonprofit activities in the community.
Yeah.
What kind of activities? Seva, why don't you share a little bit about the kind of activities and the kind of charitable organizations that you're supporting right now or helping to, for them to manifest what they're hoping to do?
Yeah, we're starting to grow in a few different ways. What we found is the most tangible way to connect with the general population is around community and service. So we've started to really get involved with each other on a social level. So just getting together, we're starting to do more yoga in the park and get together for a happy hour. And we get together routinely as a group to build relationships, because relationships are really the core of everything. And then we're doing a lot of volunteering in the community. We've probably volunteered, I'd say, we launched the team about 6 months ago with just, I think it was the two of us and maybe 2 other people were there that day.
Earth Day.
Earth Day.
Yeah.
And we have about 250 people. Every day new people join.
Wow.
We don't necessarily invite them. Other people tell people and tell people. So the team is starting to grow very quickly right now. And we've probably participated in, I'd say, about 20 events now at this point of all sizes, whether that is just, going down to Sarah House, which is like an end-of-life care home in the community that's doing unbelievable work, and going down and gardening and cooking meals for people there. Or it's at this film festival we had a few weeks ago where we had about 40 people that were involved in every stage of throwing the festival, whether it was planning and doing the setup and volunteering throughout the event and breaking it down. We were permeated throughout the whole event. So there's a big range of what we're getting involved in. And now we're starting to form some really good partnerships in the community with some great nonprofits like the World Business Academy, run by Ronaldo Bertocco, that's doing some amazing work. I think he was even a guest on your show.
He's a guest on our show.
He's a friend of ours and is doing some phenomenal things on the planet for the environment. We're teaming up with, obviously, the Association for Global New Thought, which is Michael Beckwith and Barbara Fields and Barbara Hubbard's organization. So we're in Human Rights Watch is a global organization that is doing some phenomenal things. A Year Without War has a mission to have a global ceasefire in 2020. This is becoming a good partner of ours.
Wow,
so we're teaming up with some really major players on a local and a global level, and we have a pretty good plan to grow that over the next 12 months.
I don't think I've ever heard, and I was for 23 years before of my spiritual counseling practice, I was an administrator for nonprofit agencies and always looking for volunteers. I was with Big Brothers Big Sisters, so volunteers were gold.
Absolutely.
I have never heard of any organization like this in my experience as a social work administrator, where that wasn't generated from the nonprofit itself, that just came as this package from the community that was there to serve nonprofits. It's just great. So how do you bring, and I'm going to address this question to you, Seva, because you say that you teach consciousness. Do you bring this level of teaching to to your group, and how receptive are they, and what is the structure of that like? And you're welcome to add anything you want to it, Sat.
Yeah, we're starting to do more of that. The first way we've done it is to just study consciousness together. So there's a book that we've been using. It's called the Prosperity Bible. It is a compilation of books on consciousness. There's 19 books in the volume. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, Wallace Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. All these books, most of them were written about 100 years ago, all based on universal truths about our energy, our consciousness, the power of our mind to create our own reality. And we've been studying it probably for half a dozen years or so. I found the book just very synchronistically 2 days before I changed my name in court, and that was a big factor in that experience for me, because in that process I decided to take on studying some new things. And one of them was my mind, and what my mind was really doing in my life. What role did my mind play? And I was blown away to discover the power of my mind. I hadn't really been introduced to it, and lo and behold, it's creating everything, every moment of my life.
There's nothing but the mind. The mind is everything.
So that process has been profound for me, and over those last 6 years I've been teaching that and coaching people on a one-on-one level and in groups around their consciousness. So we're bringing that more and more into the group, I'd say now. We study it once a week together locally for breakfast, and we just get together and read out of this book together and talk about consciousness, and it's having a profound effect actually on the team.
How many people?
I'd say we probably have had the most we've ever had is probably about 20 people together at once. We've probably had about, I'd say, 50 to 60 people of the team has come and gone through this event.
Wow.
And but it's growing faster. It's starting to build more unity and consciousness amongst the team. We've noticed different people are drawn to different facets of the team. So some are drawn to this consciousness studying more than others, and some are drawn maybe to the service element more than others. It's not really up to us to decide what part of the team draws people in first. It is a whole kind of a whole process to help people be fulfilled and expansive in their consciousness. So whatever way people come in and get introduced to the team, it doesn't really matter to me. But we do have some more ways in which we're going to be doing that through teaching workshops in town and starting to launch some more projects together as well.
Right. You want to add anything to that, Sat?
Yeah, I would say that we're just attracting really great people, and that's really was the whole purpose of when we finally put the project out there to the public, to people outside of ourselves, talking about this idea for quite a while. It was like, let's just launch this and just allow it to unfold. You couldn't plan everything. We kind of realized that. So since we launched it on Earth Day, we've attracted to some really great people. I mean, all 250 people plus are fantastic, but a lot of really conscious people. So it's not so much that we've even needed to talk about it necessarily. We're just attracting back the right people that really understand these ideas. A lot of healers, a lot of younger people that are just, conscious and haven't gone through a lot of the, the 25 years of programming. Yeah, exactly. Where they're still free. They grew up maybe here in California or in Santa Barbara. They're just
with conscious parents.
Absolutely. So it changes, But I mean, I think the people we've drawn in naturally have been fantastic, and we continue to do so, regardless of the actual, projects and the prosperity studies we've done. People are just coming to us. So it's giving us more people, I think, to then collectively create things with. Because now that people are drawn to us, we can create together. It doesn't have to be just our ideas.
Yeah, you've built a resonant field.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what it is.
It's just
there's an energy that's taking place that like energy is attracting to. And so you obviously are creating a field. And, based upon the studies, and you're talking about a prosperity Bible, can you share with us a little bit about what prosperity is, in a way? Because it's a little more than just simply the almighty dollar.
For sure. I'll absolutely allow you to talk about prosperity. It's
his
favorite thing to talk about in the world. So
I do enjoy talking about prosperity. Prosperity is not just money, as we know, but a lot of people think that it is. Prosperity is really about fulfillment and expansion in what Florence Shin calls the square of life. It's health, wealth, love, and self-expression. And that's just a principle that I've found she made it very tangible in this book. It's one of the books in this Prosperity Bible that we study together. But it's really about our consciousness and our ability to just be at these higher levels of vibration that allow us to experience more of what we want. It's not about this physical thing that we get, and then we do things to get it and then use it, or it's not outside of us. It's really just about us and our state of being. The richest people in the world are the ones that just experience the highest levels of consciousness, not the ones that have the most money. I know a lot of people that have lots of money that are very unhappy, and they don't have health, and they're not fully self-expressed because they're doing things they don't love to do, and they don't have good relationships. These people, to me, are some of the brokest people on the planet, not the wealthiest. But some, if looking at it from this place of separation, or that money was this thing outside of us, might look at these people and say, wow, these are the people I want to be like. These are the most prosperous people on the planet. And I'd say that's not really this new way to kind of experience energy together. Money is a big factor in wealth in the fullness of our ability to experience things, because it allows us access to a lot of things, but it's not the money itself, it's the consciousness behind the money.
Yeah, so
Beautiful.
that truly wealth and prosperity, for that matter, is simply a vibrational state of being.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, the nonprofit that supports this very program, the Share the Wealth Foundation, has its tagline, "Wealth is a rainbow, money is a color," which goes exactly to the point that you discussed, that wealth is something that can be embodied, and there's so many different aspects of it that go so far beyond whatever is external and whatever money can buy.
For sure.
So speaking of money, how is the organization funded?
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
So far, it has not been. Everything we've done has been actually
Wow.
for $0. We've kind of thrown ourselves into this project, started on a more of a part-time, hey, we'll just get this out there. But very quickly, things were coming to us where we just had to say yes, because it was, the organization had to grow. It was our passion. It was a passion project. We had to throw ourselves into it.
Right.
So we've actually been able to do just about everything we've done. I think maybe everything we've done at this point. A lot of people have pitched in, and that's really it's a team effort. It's a community. So when we've needed a certain something, someone will come. We've had booths down at festivals, and people have pitched in the tents and the tables and their time, and it's incredible. So we've done everything with $0 so far, but we're at the point now where we're ready to take it to the next level. So we are in the process of becoming a 501c3.
Great.
Getting a sponsorship. We've got a couple organizations we're talking to about that. So opportunities have come our way, and we're looking to take it to the next level and get some funding in for the next few months.
And you're ready to launch your website too, I understand.
Yeah, it will be up maybe by the time this airs. Yeah, this is
Oh,
really
good.
excited
That'll be
about
good.
it. And
A really amazing company
great
named
company.
Amerivant.
Yes,
is
I'm
doing some
familiar. That's my company
It
too.
is.
Yeah.
Michael Kramer's
Amazing work.
phenomenal. They're
Yeah.
doing the whole team over there, Josh and Monty, and the whole team is really phenomenal, and have really bought into the cause of the team. And that is
Are they donating their time to you?
They have. they have donated their time to us. It was a process of getting to know them first because they're super busy. They do tons of great work. But the more they got to know us and find out about kind of what we're about and kind of what we were doing, putting ourselves completely out there with, really no certainty to our own even livelihood. But we just, our calling just kept us in the game, and that's why we do everything we do today, is just we're feeling compelled to do it. It's not because it's necessarily the most logical thing to do, but our hearts are really in it, and it's drawn in people whose hearts have gotten in it and have come together to offer services in different capacities, and they've been donating a lot of time and energy to us, and it's a beautiful work they're doing as well. So we're really grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's great. It's absolutely fabulous. Now, I'd like to shift gears just a little bit. I'm a double Gemini, sun and moon, so I already have twins built in. But you guys are twins, and I've heard all kinds of things about how they have your own language and you have your own kind of telepathy and everything else. What is it like to be a twin? And do you have this, extraordinary connection with each other?
I would say we do, and we've known each other since the womb, as we say.
Right.
So our entire existence, physical existence, we've known each other. And I always ask people when they ask me that too. I'm like, what's it like not to be a twin? Because I don't know any different. I've always had my brother, although we've gone through lots of changes and been apart from each other. I think that was one of the best experiences, honestly, I think we ever had, was when he actually packed up and moved to Southeast Asia for a little while on a one-way ticket. For me, that was really huge because it actually forced me to detach myself and let go of him and even having a twin. I actually had some real anxiety around it. I thought I'd never see him again. I thought something was going to happen. So I actually was forced in my own way to emotionally let go of him as my brother, and then just really live my own life and focus on that. And I'm glad, you're sitting here beside me now, and we spent a lot of time together. But at the same time, we very much have our own identities, but being a twin has always been part of our lives. So, sure. To not be a twin is foreign to me. But we have a really great relationship. I think we complement each other really well. We absolutely.
When is your birthday?
It's in August 7th.
August, Leos.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Passionate.
Yep.
Passionate,
yep.
yeah.
Definitely.
Great, and prosperous. Passionate and prosperous.
Yeah, it's a great tagline, actually.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So hearing from both of you, I meant to say, what is your greatest passion? What is your greatest passion?
My greatest passion is helping people be fully self-expressed. That's it for me. I think if you can just help somebody identify with who they truly are and allow them to be that person and that way of being, I think that's, we have 7.5 billion people on the planet. And a lot of us, I think, are spending a lot of time trying to fit in, trying to, get a career over here or a relationship over here, and trying to do things outside of ourselves to be happy, when real fulfillment is from being who we are naturally and expressing that in the world. So for me, it took a long process. But for me now, it's volunteering, it's getting involved in the community and building conscious community really is what I love to do. But 8.5 billion people, whatever you got now, everyone's different. No one's exactly the same. And I think that's the greatest thing I've learned from being an identical twin, is that he's outside of myself. We look at each other, we're obviously different, but we're from the exact same place. So I think I've just been able to take that analogy and use that, for anybody. Anybody you walk by, the consciousness has allowed us to see that we're exactly the same, from source. Mm-hmm. But yet here we appear different.
Right.
So,
unique expression of the divine in human form, I like to say.
Yeah, and I know Michael Bernard Beckwith always talks about that. It's just, your own self-expression. That's one of the things that he says when you first show up to his spiritual center. And so I think if we can help every person become who they are naturally, that's when we get a thriving planet, is when everybody is actually being themselves and not trying to fit in and be, what do you do for a living? And we're trying to pick a job, a career that's outside of ourselves, not really actually being true and authentic to who we are. When we can tap into that, then we can actually benefit the entire planet. So I like to help people with that. And
that's great.
So
people establish their identity by things outside of them, by their degrees and by their money and by their, whatever, but their homes and their belongings, instead of really understanding that it all comes from the inside.
Absolutely. So that's why self-expression is part of, the square of life is so important, and because everyone's got their own way of expressing themselves. So as a society, we could help people do that, then we'll see everyone's going to reap the benefits of that.
And when you look at the fact that we're all unique, every single being on the planet is unique, then where does competition and comparison come in?
Absolutely.
Really, if everyone would just tap into their uniqueness and be willing to express it.
Yeah, I think collaboration is in cooperation. That's the new
Yes.
way of the future, of the new evolution of the human species. Really,
Co-opetition. I think my son was telling me co-opetition. We made up a new word. How about you, Seva? What's your passion?
I think this is why we're good teams. I think we have similar passions, but one of the things I really admire about him is his involvement in the community. He's really, he really hustles. He plays full out. He's the coach of the team. He's always setting up those next engagements for us to get involved. He's always, he's the one that places all the people in the volunteer shifts. He's the volunteer coordinator at all the events. He plays a pivotal role in all these operations. I like to speak more about the consciousness behind it all and the vision of the organization that we're growing. And my passion is really to help people connect with their own presence. I had a major out-of-body experience several years ago that really shifted my consciousness in my place of awareness in which I experienced my life. And it took me several years to integrate that into...
Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I would love to. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. I had already gone through this name change and was studying the power of the mind and was just becoming more and more aware. But my family was going through a big shift, and one of my relatives really needed our help, so we had to come around him and actually move him out of his home. The home was collapsing around him, actually. He was going through a major letting go process and going through a lot of suffering due to some things going on in his life. And we had to go in and basically kind of rescue him from the situation and move him to a new house. And we spent about a month gutting the house itself because it was non-salvageable. It was falling apart literally at the seams. And it was a very emotionally trying experience for my family. And on the last day, I was in the basement very symbolically and was going through some things that have been left there for decades, and it really hit a moment of ultimate frustration, just feeling all the energy that had been built up in this house. And it was a difficult moment. I was asking myself, how is this even happening? It's like somebody I love more than anyone that is going through these experiences. I couldn't believe that it was happening. And right in that moment, I reached into this pile of debris in the basement, and my hand grabbed something, and I pulled it out, and it was this little wooden plaque that I still have today. And it had 3 words on it. It said, "Bless this mess." And I froze. Something in me was just really resonated with it, and I said, even in this moment, there is a blessing. And I couldn't see it around me. There was no sight of the blessing, but it was there. And it really brought me fully into that moment. And I smiled, and I thought of my dad upstairs, who I knew was frustrated, probably way more than me. So I went racing upstairs to tell him. I needed to show him the sign and tell him the story. But I didn't account for the structure of the house. It was about a 110-year-old house, and as I was leaving the stairs, I hit my head on this beam that was just hanging low in the structure, and I've never felt such pain in my life. I felt this surge of pain rush through my body, and my body collapsed under me, and the only thought I had was I'm being knocked unconscious. Like, it was the only thing that went through my head. And so my body hit the floor, and right when I was blacking out, something really miraculous happened. I didn't get knocked unconscious. I became conscious, like momentarily, and experienced myself as energy, just as pure, light, formless energy that I knew myself to be. And I knew my body was there, but I knew I was not my body, that my body was just an extension of my consciousness. And it was a very loving, blissful experience. It was the most present feeling I've ever experienced. And my father came racing down the stairs and was like hovering over my body, asking me if I was okay. And I didn't see him. I just knew he was there. I transcended my senses in those moments. I didn't need my senses. So he grabbed my hand and he said, "Hey, let me know you're okay." Squeeze my hand. So I sent my energy into my body and I squeezed his hand. And once I knew that he knew I was fine, I withdrew my energy again and just went back into this state of formlessness. And he left me there. He knew I was fine. He just said rest, and he left. And I just stayed in this state. There was no sense of time. It transcended time. I just was. And it was beautiful. And I finally felt the urge to enter the physical form again, and I did. I went into my body and opened my eyes, and I was lying on the floor, and I looked at the clock. It had been about 40 minutes,
Wow.
but I had no sense of time at all. It was very present.
That's amazing.
And and he helped me up, and he took me down to the ocean, down the street, and just for a breather. And I just remember looking out at the ocean in this state of just wonder, just knowing that I am all of this, and it's all connected. It was very profound, and it took me several years to really integrate that into my way of life, because there was a real seeming separation from the physical for me, because it was hard to get pulled back into the things that I used to think were such a big deal.
Were you a meditator then?
I do.
Were you a meditator when that happened?
Yeah, I had been for a little bit, not extensively, but yeah.
Do you find when you meditate now that you can just kind of like drop into that place of formlessness?
Sometimes easier than others. There's more of a constant awareness that I am that energy and that I am there, but it's not necessarily like easy to physically get into that state. I can't say that I've ever experienced anything since then that really compared. I can't really describe it. It really transcends words to describe the experience. But it took me several years to get myself back into society, because I just, all the things that used to pull me,
lost its grip.
They completely lost their grip on me, and I realized they were all coming from a place of fear, from a place of trying to film from the outside, in. Whether it was like a career or anything, it brought me back to this question that I've asked myself for 3 years, which is, if anything's possible, what do I choose? Because I know anything's possible. So it's made me question everything at the core of my existence now. Who am I? What is the world? What is God? Who are people? Some of the core things that we take for granted when we live in what we think is the physical world. We're not living in this world outside of us. We're actually creating it every moment with our thoughts.
Do you know who Joe Dispenza is? He wrote...
I do know of Joe. I haven't read any of his books.
Yeah, he wrote a book called You Are the Placebo, but he made a statement that just blew my mind when I first heard him speak. He said, we are no thing, we are no thing, we are no body, living in no time. We are no thing, we are no body, living in no time. And that's profound when you contemplate that.
It's the opposite of what the ego wants to hear.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it resonates with all these things.
Yeah, exactly.
The physical and the sense of time, that we're these beings that, we're born one day into this external world and we're trying to figure it out, and that we have this inevitable death ahead of us that we don't really understand, and then, who knows what happens after that. So it totally took me outside of that realm of even experiencing life. And then I've had my own challenges to, coming back in. I heard Michael Bernard Beckwith talk about this on your program. He's had this experience of presence, this divine presence, he calls it.
Yes.
I call it the I am presence. But he said he's learned to embrace his, his human side now. And that's been a real process for me to re-embrace being human just physically again. The gifts of just being and appreciating the physical.
Right.
For a while, it really detached me from connecting with other people, because I didn't really want to do it on some of these lower levels of understanding. But now I've learned to really embrace that. There's a real gift in just...
Because that's why we're here.
It's why we're here. I often refer to it as, an actor like, say, Daniel Day-Lewis is a method actor. So what he does is, if you know much about method acting, he basically just jumps into that character for months, sometimes even before the shoot. And then he stays in it throughout the whole shoot, even between takes. That's what method acting is. And, he's one of the most well-known successful actors on the planet. And, I've heard him talk about this process for him, and how he played Abraham Lincoln in that movie Lincoln. He said he felt the sense of death at the end of that movie, because he had become that character so much that it was basically like dying to that character to get back to just being his presence. So, we do that in our own lives. We just take whatever name we're given, that tends to be the character that we take on, and we're such good method actors that we forget that we're playing these characters.
Exactly. Well, Shakespeare said it, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
all the world's a stage.
All the world's a stage. Yeah.
I couldn't help but be taken by you guys where Sat means truth, and Seva means service. When we talked about your passions, you were talking about serving others, and you were talking about truth.
It's funny because we've talked about that too, and that's
interesting.
The whole idea that really life is just a reflection for us. And we've talked about this with each other. I feel like he's a really great reflection for me, with his name, Truth, as to how I can be an example of that. And I think, I feel like with my name, Seva, has been a good reflection for him, maybe to take on service. And I would say that's accurate. I think he is, he's even more about service than I am in that way, for sure.
And it makes one wonder that as we travel down this rabbit hole that could be called truth, to our essential essence, that its natural tendency is to serve, or to
give of yourself,
or to join, or to share, to expand, and reclaim its fragments.
Yeah, I think naturally we just want to, again, it goes back to self-expression, expressing yourself, your God being, your God presence, just expressing that in the world. When you're connected to that, and you're connected to your presence and your connection to everything around you, you're naturally just wanting to give. You're not going to just take or look out to just fend for yourself at that point. I think if you connect to your purpose, anybody that way, it will be to tend to give it to the world.
Right.
So you're giving it. You're not looking out to get. So no matter what it is, it's just giving of yourself, I think. And we all have different talents and skills and passions. But I think that's what life's about, is that self-expression.
So what is your advice to young people who are just awakening, coming into their consciousness, but perhaps live in a family or in an environment that doesn't support that, or maybe even judges that? What is your advice to young people like that?
My advice would be to really look outside of your current environment for a group, for people outside of yourselves, for a TV show, for just things you can start to fill your mind with. For me, it was Agape. I needed to go to Agape. I hit a rock bottom in LA, and I just needed to be there. There was nowhere else in the world. It came to me. I said, where can I go for love? I surrendered. Agape was the answer, and I just showed up a couple days later on Sunday, and it was it for me. So I think if you look to find a community outside of yourself that's going to support you, I think that's what young people need to do, because otherwise you might not be getting it. Doesn't mean your family doesn't love you, doesn't mean your friends don't love you, your community, but if it's not giving you the place to be yourself and to live from these truths, you've got to find people outside of yourself to support that. I think you probably agree with that.
Yeah, we've had some people on the team come to us recently too, because they're going through these big shifts in life, and a lot of times they show up in different ways for people. But a lot of times it comes with your family and your friends not really understanding you. And you look to them for support and to connect, but they're looking at the world through different paradigms. They don't understand it. They see you through the old lens of who you used to be. And if you're trying to make a change from the inside out, they don't have any way to see that necessarily. So they look at you through that old lens. So sometimes it's important to separate yourself from that and plug in, with people that have these new mindsets. One of the mantras for our team is that we're clear channels to heal, bless, prosper, and enlighten. We're just a stand for that. And,
Beautiful. Say it again.
We're clear channels to heal, bless, prosper, and enlighten.
Gorgeous.
And we try to be a stand for that for the people on the team, to hold the space for their grace to take place, for their shift to happen. So, by seeing their divine self when we see them, and not buying into those limiting patterns that other people might buy into about them, or even the ones they have about themselves.
Who they think they are,
right?
as opposed to
you
who they
provide them
truly
with that reflection.
Yeah.
I've often thought that one of the greatest gifts we can give each other is to remind each other who we really are at the core, and be that reflection.
That's what I think our team is really about, is just creating a space for people. I think you said it really wonderfully there, but it's just giving people a space to have that. And we have gotten a lot of calls from people and just emails from people just thanking us for doing what we're doing, thanking us for just having the team available. And it's not just us, our other great people in the team are all stepping up to be there in support of each other. So I think just in nature of just having this team environment anywhere, and anyone can create this team environment, anywhere in the world, it's just about creating a space to really be there for people and be compassionate and hear them out and look to actually just serve them in that moment and be a stand for their own prosperity, their health, their well-being. And I think that we've gotten away from that in society a lot. So I think this team atmosphere kind of it stands for that. It gives people a space that anybody can come to when they have nowhere else to go.
Beautiful. So what's next in terms of activities or functions that the team and the hustlers are coming together on as we look at the next couple of months, so that our people watching here can participate in one form or another?
Great. We've got just a lot of things coming up. A lot of festivals and fundraisers come our way. We've got probably at least half a dozen volunteer opportunities, from the holiday parade here in Santa Barbara at the beginning of December, some fundraising functions for nonprofits in town, a couple festivals that are coming up. We're involved in really just anything going on here. So there's plenty of opportunity. So we're always looking for more people. To be honest, today we've got two different groups at two different places, and that's happening more and more. So it just there's a lot to do in Santa Barbara if you want to get in the game and contribute.
There's a lot of nonprofits here too.
There are. There's more per capita than anywhere in the country.
So we're coming to the end of the show, and I have to ask this question, and I'm also going to ask you guys for a pearl of wisdom to leave our viewers with. But I asked this to Michael. Do you think it's possible that we can actually experience heaven on earth? Not just from the standpoint of beautiful weather in Santa Barbara and like that, but really and truly this planet being, I think, what its original, perhaps, destination was,
Absolutely.
Original form was. Do you think it's possible for us to experience that in our
Yes.
lifetime?
Oh, yes. 100 times over. I mean, that's what we're here for. I think a lot of people are waking up to that right now, and that's where the co-creation process is coming, the shift in consciousness all over the world. People are being drawn together, different people with different projects. It's to create the next, evolution of the planet, really. I mean, I always come back to this. If the humans weren't here, the planet just would be. The animals wouldn't be screwing things up. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You wouldn't have animals cutting down trees and doing all these, destroying the environment. It's just really humans. The human consciousness is what creates the planet. So as we raise our consciousness as a planet and come together to co-create together, it's inevitable that we will reach that. And again, state of consciousness is an inner, thing we experience. Heaven is a state of being, first and foremost.
Right.
So you have to be present to that and experience it right here and right now, first, and understand that, and then you can get to experiencing it in the world as we want, because then it's a co-creation of who we are inside first.
Right, right. True. Very good. Okay. Do you have anything to ask before I
No, I think we
ask
can.
the final question?
Why don't we go right to a couple of pearls?
Okay. So we always like to close the show with a pearl of wisdom. All right. So what, if you could just, synthesize this conversation today with a pearl of wisdom for our viewers, what would you say, Sat? And that camera right over there is yours.
Oh, beautiful. Say follow your heart. That's where the essence of life comes from, and also get out of your job and into your joy. That's what I like to tell people, because the joy is when you're doing things you love to do, you'll be happy. The money will come. If you're chasing things outside of yourself, whether it's a job or a relationship or a certain type of house you want to live in, and you equate that to happiness, you'll never get there, because happiness is here and now in the moment. So if you follow your heart, listen to your inner wisdom, you'll start being that out in society. You'll start doing things that align with who you are, and that will lead to a really fulfilling life.
Wow. Most impressive.
Good.
How about you,
almost
Seva?
don't even want to say anything after that. That was great.
Oh, thanks, man.
I'd say, one thing he touched on, I think, is your point of power is in the present. So just anything you're suffering from, your answer is being fully present more. I think a lot of times we have the habit of looking to escape what we're feeling through things from the outside, substances and food and other people even. And, I think the key to transcending anything you're suffering through is just to fully embrace all the feelings that come along with it, to let them up, let yourself fully feel them, and let them pass on. And what that does is it leaves a space. It leaves a space to ask yourself that question: when anything's possible, what do you choose?
Wow, you guys are amazing.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So impressive, really.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Built
for
of
being on the show.
Thanks for having us. This has been so much fun.
I'm so glad that we did
Thank
this,
you.
really.
Oh, gentlemen.
So appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
And
having
I'm
us.
sure we're
Thank
going
you
to
so
be
much.
connected with you again and doing
Yeah.
some
We'd love to be.
work. Yeah, I would love to do that. So
Look
thanks
forward
a
to
lot
it.
for being here today.
Thank you.
And now it's time for one of our favorite segments in Get Conscious Now, and that's Stu's Views. So I'm really happy to introduce you to Mr. Stu Zimmerman. Stu's Views.
Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
All right, here we go, everybody. This edition of Stu's Views is actually a continuation of where we were last month. So if you missed the last program, I'm highly inviting you to go to youtube.com at our Get Conscious Now station, or just come to getconsciousnow.com and check out the last program with Reverend Michael Beckwith. And you can fast forward to the Stu's Views, because what we talked about there, and it's been a theme on this program as well, is it was inspired by this TV show out there called Utopia. And that's this social experiment of 15 people, $5,000, and see if they can create heaven on earth. Well, my version of Utopia we'll call Stutopia, if you don't mind. And what Stutopia is, and we talked about it earlier today, is that it's a vibration. It's a vibrational existence that feels so delicious and so delightful. So you may ask, gee, Stu, how can I tap into some Stutopia? Well, tapping into that which is infinite can have infinite possibilities. But one of them that I noticed is through atonement. Now I know that, they got the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the holiest day of their year. And it has to do with forgiveness, which, to quote Michael Beckwith again, where he defines forgiveness as being claiming your personal power, your complete personal power, to free yourself from the past. So whatever it is that happened, whether you were blaming yourself or feeling a victim to somebody else, once the energy around it is completely resolved, that is forgiveness. Now, in this case, and some of my friends, and I've got a number of Jewish friends, as you may imagine, I grew up Jewish myself, and some of the more New Age ones will actually call the Day of Atonement the Day of At-One-ment. It's because we're going into some form of unity consciousness, which we also touched upon today, right? But I'm going to take it even more literally than that, and consider that atonement is literally about atone. So that when we tap into our presence as a vibrational state of being, it actually comes with tone. Just like I used to tell my kids, watch your tone. We could watch our own tone and feel it. And when we speak in a way that is truly honoring life and just having this inherent sense of gratitude, simply that we exist, we may notice that our voice sounds different. And we begin to talk at a slightly different pace. And we calm down a little bit. And we have this tint of delight that kind of borders on giddiness, because it feels absolutely delicious, if not an absolute miracle, that we get to exist at all. Because last I checked, there's no law that says we have to, or that humanity even needs to be a successful experiment. So I'm inviting you into a tone. And so right now, I'm going to take a deep breath, and whoever's out there can take a deep breath and let go of a sigh. And if you want a sigh of relief, and if you want to call it a supersize, do a supersize of relief. Simply that there's something that's infinite, that has somehow, in its infinite imagination, created us, and somehow wants to awaken through us. So I'm going to do it, and you feel free to do it too. And it goes something like this. Yeah, and it ends up with an involuntary laugh because it feels so great just simply to exist. That is Stutopia.
Nice.
Yeah. And so with that, it's now time to take Stutopia into a quantum quote. Patricia.
Thank you, Stu. As always, darling, very inspiring. Okay, so when I started researching a quote for today's show that would be the perfect quote, I for the heck of it, I just went online and I Googled Conscious Youth Quotes. That's the name of our show. And up came all these quotes, and right at the very beginning, there was a quote that I just felt a chill in my body, and I just knew it was the perfect quote for today's show and our conversation with Sat and Seva about service. And it's from Dr. Martin Luther King, and this is how it goes. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are we doing for others? Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are we doing for others? Just one simple sentence that is so powerful. And it gives us pause to reflect on what are we doing for others in our busy lives. We get so caught up in our lives. And when I think about that, and when I feel like perhaps I'm not doing enough for others, my tendency is to go to this thought that, well, wait a minute, there's only one of us here. We're all connected in the web of life. Each of us is a unique expression of the divine in human form. There is no separation except in our ego's judgment. So if there's only one of us here, this one humanity, all connected to all life, including Gaia herself, that when we're giving to another, when we're doing for another, what are we doing? We're doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for ourselves. So I feel that the ultimate act of giving really is and doing for others is an act of self-love. And I will say, in my experience as a spiritual counselor, that the root of most people's suffering is the fact that they really don't know to love themselves. They don't know the first thing about loving themselves. This is not everybody, but most people. I don't know. I was never taught to love myself. I was also raised Catholic, like Sat and Seva. So what does it really mean to love ourselves? And for me, it means to fully embrace our true identity as divine beings in physical form, and this amazing, innate, immeasurable power that we have to create our reality. And when we do that, and when we can accept ourselves as that, without the masks, without the identifications of the outer world, when we can truly come into alignment, then it naturally follows and flows that we want to do for others and we want to give for others. It's our natural state. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching tonight. We really loved the show. It was great to have Sat and Seva with us today. So let's all connect up here. So thank you for watching today. And until next time, remember,
Get
conscious
now.
Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcata Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it.